Well, hello, ladies, my leading ladies. It's Angela Dryden, and I'm glad that you tuned in and that you're here to learn about 3 more codependent behaviors and their counterparts, the ones that we want to transform into 3 leading lady behaviors. So without further ado, we're just going to dive into them. These are the last 3. So I did 4 combinations of 3, so 12 total behaviors that we explored, and this is the last one on that. And I will eventually be doing some videos that will be specific to each one of the behaviors and its counterpart. It's the part that you want to develop and start to become that behavior, and we'll dive really deeper into each one in videos coming down the line. So stay tuned for those because if there was a codependent behavior that you could relate to, that resonates with you, realize that I'm going to do the 12 individually, and then I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into them so that you can maybe find some tools or ways in order to transform those behaviors and create those leading lady behaviors and qualities that will bring you more of what you want in your life so that you can show up in ways that represent the authentic you and how you want to become. All right, so these 3 behaviors, these 3 codependent behaviors, these are behaviors that are all personal to the individual that is struggling with codependent behavior, in the sense that these are deep-rooted. These are behaviors because the first 3 that we talked about were 3 that we see in everybody else, but we don't see in ourselves. And these 3 that we're going to be exploring, these are 3 that we are somewhat aware of. Like, we know this happens, and we actually feel like maybe something is wrong with us because this happens. So we use these 3 behaviors as kind of like the default. Something is wrong with me because I have these emotions and feelings that are happening to me, and they need to be fixed. And I want to offer to you that as a life coach, we always kind of, for me anyways, as I coach clients, wanting them to see that you aren't broken and you don't need fixing. We just need to explore more of your thinking process and find out how it is that you're seeing things so that we can together find tools that will best navigate you through that journey and that you feel like you have a grasp on something. And I work primarily with ladies who are struggling with codependent behaviors. And also, one of the things I want to mention is that when it comes to mental health, which is really important in our society, I think the more we are open about it and understanding about it, understanding that my coaching is not to replace or take in case of mental health. Not at all. In fact, what I do kind of branches with mental health for those that are kind of at a baseline and they're living life, but they have days that they have blues. They, most of the time, they're feeling good about things, but they have moments that are discouraging to them. And maybe they feel overwhelmed and somewhat anxious sometimes. Then there are those that are really having struggle functioning, just day-to-day living. They really struggle with self in a large way, and they isolate themselves from people and situations often. And when you are not living a baseline in your life and you are struggling deeply, that is a really good sign to reach out to a counselor and or to talk to your physician when you go in to see them and let them know about what is going on and to join that, and sometimes medication's needed in that. And like I said, that is not in my scope of practice at all. And so when we talk about these things, when it comes to problem with intimacy and painful emotions, I want to let you know that when I am coaching a client, it is a client that is at baseline and they are struggling with things and they have an awareness and they're wanting to change something. I have also worked with clients that are not struggling with baseline, but they are also going to a counselor and they might be taking medications. And so what I do is a different spot than what a counselor would do. And so I want you to know that if you are experiencing anything in that category, and you're really struggling on a daily basis and you feel like you are at just a complete loss all the time and you don't have happy days, please reach out to a counselor, reach out to your physician or to a doctor, to someone that, whether it's your family doctor, your whatever it is, anyone in the medical field, and let them know you're having these feelings. And there's people out there that want to help you, they want to listen to you, and they want you to feel like you are heard. And that's really important. So I just wanted to add that little bit into this video as well. All right, so let's dive into these 3 codependent behaviors that are really something, like I said, it's something that you could be aware of, and you know that happens, and you think you're broken because of it. You think something has gone terribly wrong. Like something's gone terribly wrong. And one thing I love to explore with clients is that when we think something's gone terribly wrong, when we think that because I feel this way, something is wrong with me, understand that that is it is our limbic system, like I've talked before about. It is that part of our brain that is trying to keep us safe. And so thinking that something went wrong means that we go back into our shell. And then we go back to things that we are familiar with. So we go down the familiar road because that to us is safe, and our limbic's telling us, well, you're safe there, so just stay there. Because they think that something is, you're gonna be in danger. And understanding that our mental health and being in danger, that sometimes in order for our growth process to take place, we have to be willing to get out of a certain bit of comfort zone so that we can experience that situation and then take data from that situation so we can in turn and figure it out into our lives and be able to progress from that. Because until you do something or until you take the action, you're always going to have that that unsure and not knowing if it's going to happen. And then sometimes we say, well, I'm just going to wait until this all works out, you know, in our favor. Everything works out and is rosy, then I'll take the action. Or when this changes, then I'll take the action. And understanding that having that thought right there is our brain trying to tell us to keep us safe. And that is its job, and that's what it's supposed to do. But we can engage into our prefrontal cortex and actually start to strategize and be willing to, one of my favorite things is feel the fear and do it anyways, because you won't have the data unless you just try it. So you have to try it and feel what that feels like and know that process and be aware of it at that time so that you can experience that and move forward with other things in your life. So with that being said, I know we kind of went on a couple of different things there, but with that being said, here are the things that we might be experiencing as a codependent when it comes to our behavior. So having low self-esteem, thinking that we are unworthy. That is something that is big. One of the reasons too is we start finding ourselves taking care, right, of others. So that people pleasing, that dependency. So when we are taking care of people, we think we aren't worthy and that we don't add to as much because maybe somebody's not taking care of us. But it could be maybe that we're not allowing anybody to take care of us. So maybe there's that part too. So being open to explore that with yourself, what that looks like. So having that low self-esteem. Problem with intimacy. And this works both ways when it comes to problem with intimacy. So problem may be receiving hugs and loves from individuals. So not necessarily everybody, but from certain people in your life that should be close to you. But you don't want them to hug you because you feel like literally it feels painful when they do and when they're with you. And then you wanting to hug and reach out to other people, and you're wanting to do that. And by doing that, that's your fulfillment. So if they don't want to hug you, you then again think something's wrong. So it goes both ways in the sense that you don't accept the hug and the emotion, and then you want to give it, and if they don't receive it, then something's wrong, and if you don't receive it, then something's wrong. So it's both sides of the coin. So it's kind of like a win-lose situation when it comes to intimacy. So then hence the reason, the problem with intimacy. Then painful emotions. So every emotion hurts. Everything seems overwhelming. Everything's, you kind of go to that, right, that pendulum that swings, and it's like everything is possibly wrong that could be. So you go to that place of that it's never going to get any better. And when you start to do that, you start to have those painful emotions, and they feel so real. And again, like I was explaining, right, it's that limbic system that is wanting to protect us and keep us safe. That is the motherboard of our computer, of our life. And so it wants to keep you safe. It needs to. That's important that we have that. And yet, at the same time, because that is part of our makeup of how we're made, we can use that as the default instead of actually going into the creative part of our mind, the creation and making things, which is that prefrontal cortex, and making more of what we want in our lives. And again, so we have that painful emotions, we have the problem with intimacy, and the low self-esteem. So instead of the low self-esteem, what we would like to exchange that for as a leading lady is to create the self-confidence, right? So having confidence in oneself. One thing to explore too is self-confidence is not the same as being confidence, of having confidence. So we could have confidence about a task that we perform because we've done it a lot of times. So we think like, oh, well, I have confidence in that. Of course you do, because you've done it many times. Self-confidence is knowing that you always have your own back. And that is that self-confidence. And that's what I'm talking about in growing. So you can use forms of confidence to grow self-confidence, but understand that self-confidence and having confidence in something are two different things. And so low self-esteem, as we have that, to replace that with confidence, which means that we attempt things and we're willing to do things and give it a shot, right? So we're willing to do the action to create something that is different and see and analyze that data and information that we get from that experience and see what it is and how that has affected us and what kind of growth we experience from that, what kind of pain we might have experienced from that, and what that all looks like. So going from low self-esteem and replacing that with self-confidence and deciding that you are worth it. So deciding that I get to create the life that I want from the thoughts that I'm thinking and taking ownership of that. And so really these three behaviors are really becoming internal of what it is that I need to do and how I need to show up. Because a lot of times we'll go into things in like the first three behaviors, the denial behavior, the obsession behavior. Like I said, those are things that we see in others and we don't see in ourselves. And when we start to do that, our focus is so much on others. And so we don't get that self-confidence because our focus is on all, instead of actually turning it inward about how it is that these people said words to me and what is it that I want to make that mean. And that gives you that confidence and that energy and that emotion that moves you towards doing more things that maybe were out of your comfort zone at one time, and now you're starting to open up to it and receiving what that looks like to you. And so that is kind of that building that block into self-confidence. So problem with intimacy. So when we're having problems with people hugging us and then us hugging people, when there's kind of a disconnect and we want our cake and eat it too, kind of intimacy problem there. With that, I want to offer that you replace that with vulnerability. Vulnerability. Okay. So we've replaced that with vulnerability, which means that we are offering ourselves to be exposed, which is huge for somebody that is a codependent. And that can really seem like a big step. And so what I like to offer clients is when we're going from the problem with intimacy, if that is something that they're truly struggling with, and we want to go to vulnerability, taking that leap at the beginning is like, there's no way that's going to happen. I'm not going to do that. So what I like to offer is we do bridging behaviors to get to this part. And so we do little things at a time. So what if you choose to go up and hug somebody that you normally, that feels uncomfortable to you, you do that, and you allow yourself to see what that means. And maybe they'll be like, well, no, I don't want to hug you. And then you take that and you kind of dissect that for yourself. And so you're willing to just kind of see what that looks like and just open up just a little bit so that you can kind of choose how you want to perceive that. And so as you're going through these steps to these behaviors, there is no real order to go through it as you kind of develop these leading lady behaviors, but picking the ones that resonate to you and ones that you are really aware of really helps at the beginning. And it helps because then once you start changing that to a leading lady quality, then it opens up doors and windows for you to see things differently. So the light's letting in. You're starting to see things from a different way. So then it gets easier throughout the steps. And that's one reason why these 3 behaviors I left as the last 12, because these are kind of that internal, scary, I don't know if I can be vulnerable. I don't know if I have enough self-confidence, those things. And as you go and you start doing the other little things, you can build upon it. Like I said, confidence is different than self-confidence, but you can build on creating confidence and things that you can do, and then you can start building self-confidence if you would like. So that kind of gives you an idea. So having that vulnerability, being open to that, choosing to start to do those things, and then when somebody might reject you or you feel like you might be rejected, being open to just allow them to decide what they want to feel, but you choosing to feel the same way. You choosing to feel the same way in the sense of whatever you felt about them before they rejected you. Not making the rejection mean something. And that's a huge step. And when we can start noticing that the rejection is on their side of the street, that's what they get to have. That me deciding if the rejection means something, that's my side of the street. And when we can start to really divide that and see the differences between what's theirs and what's ours, then we really kind of can make that momentum and movement towards more of what we want in our lives and how we want to show up. And so that's that part of vulnerability. And so then we have painful emotions. Like I said, emotions that just ache, that just kind of break your heart, that you just feel like not everybody, there's no way people feel this way. This is like, I am broken. Something is wrong with me because I feel so deeply about somebody. Because remember, because of detachment, right? We're a codependent. So when we become interdependent, which is the leading lady quality. So when we start to become interdependent and we decide that we make things mean what we want them to mean, and we take information and data from those situations and we start to build our confidence, build our vulnerability, and allow people to be who they want to be and not judge that, but just love them for where they are, not having to agree or disagree with them, but just let them be, then we start to kind of realize that the painful emotions don't have to be so painful because we are not attached to that. And we allow people to be themselves around us no matter what. And so instead of having painful emotions, I want to offer that we replace that with courage. So the behavior of courage, like how am I going to show up with courage? What does that look like for me? And how can I generate courage? What are thoughts that I can think that will help me generate courage when I feel like I am experiencing a painful emotion? And what's the thought that I was thinking that caused that painful emotion? How did I interpret something that might have made me feel this emotion that I don't know how to feel and that I am not enjoying right now? And how can I just sit here and receive that feeling and allow, like hold it and then release it. Like, how can I do that? How can I show up in a way that is respectful to myself and to the other people in my life? So these are 3 big ones when it comes to creating and becoming that leading lady in your life. So these are 3 qualities: the self-confidence, the vulnerability, and courage. And those are ones that are pretty good sized ones. So those are things that obviously take courage, take vulnerability, take confidence, self-confidence. And so what I want to offer is that there are building thoughts from these behaviors. There are building behaviors in between to help you get to this, to bridge the gap, so that you're not trying to have an emotion that's not real to you, because then you're faking your life. We want to start generating emotions and thoughts that are real to us, so that we can have ownership of them, and that we realize that we are 50-50. We're sometimes bad 50% of the time, and we're sometimes good 50% of the time. And taking ownership of that in us, not in others, but in us, that I have bad thoughts about people and I have good thoughts about people. And that is part of me, and that's part of my makeup and how I operate and my environment and things I've been around. And not being scared of those and trying to hide that, but being open to the fact that I can open those up to myself, so much so that I am willing to be me around everybody. And I don't have to try to mimic or be a chameleon, and that I can actually show up as me, and that matters. And no matter what other people think about me, they're allowed to have their opinion, and I want them to. I want them to feel like they can always have their opinion, even if it's nothing that I agree with, even if it's something about me that I don't agree with. I want them to always have their opinion, so that I allow that space for them, and that in return, I'm respecting myself, and I'm showing up how I've wanted to show up. All right, ladies, I hope this was helpful. I do enjoy doing this, and my true desire is that the information I put out there into the world, I've always believed that what you put out into the world comes back to you. And I want people to know that they are of value. They are 100%, that nobody needs to make them whole. But you can choose to have people in your life that add to your life, and you can choose to have people in your life that you enjoy being around. But whether or not those people stay or leave does not empty you. You are already 100%. And understand that, and realize that you have something that you need to give into this world. And as your coach, if you are looking for a coach in your life, as your coach, I want to help show you how you can make those things possible in your life, and what that might look like for you, and see what that transformation might feel like to you. So take care of you until I see you next time and we do another video. And take care and have a wonderful rest of the day or evening whenever you see this. Thank you. Bye.